Possibility Mamas, today we are in for a treat. If you need some encouragement today in your walk as a Catholic mom, I want to encourage you to listen to this episode. I've got my dear friend, Dorothy Pilarski, founder of the Dynamic Women of Faith Conference and Catholic Moms Group movement. And we're just going to be talking about all things Catholic motherhood. How do you stay encouraged when sometimes it feels so difficult? How do you bring Christ into your home and into the lives of your children and your husband in a way that is authentic and just lived out? And I think you're going to be really encouraged by this conversation. That's what's coming up today on the Possibility Mom Live. Having a lovely, lovely Valentine's Day so far. Today, I am happy to report that I am out of 2 feet of snow. So I have moved to, I grew up in Toronto, Canada. Then I moved to Ave Maria, Florida to get rid of winter altogether. You know what I mean? Like just with as many children as I have, to not have to do snow pants and boots, to just be like, put on your flip-flops and let's go. Let me just tell you, it's just so nice. And then we're back in Canada, and this is our second full winter in Peterborough. So I moved to about an hour and a half where I grew up. And Peterborough is an area that just gets, I don't know what it is. God just loves Peterborough so much that he covers it in like feet of snow. And so yesterday I opened my door to legitimately 2 feet of snow, and it took a whole bunch of small children and big children, all the people to dig out our passenger van. And anyway, but today it's still snowing, but today, like, the roads are actually clear, things are open. And anyway, I hope whatever you're doing today on this Valentine's Day, you are safe and warm. Those of you who are in Florida, just happy you're there. You lots. Today, I'm so happy to bring on the podcast the beautiful Dorothy Pilarski. Dorothy is somebody I've known for many years, and she has been a source of encouragement to me, and I know she's going to be a source of encouragement to you. So welcome to the podcast, Dorothy Pilarski. How are you today, Dorothy?
I'm thrilled to be here. What an incredible privilege. What an incredible opportunity. I love you. I love your work. I love your book. My
book is right there. Oh my goodness.
Right there. I know. So you're
Dorothy, for anyone who might not know you and your work, can you introduce yourself?
Well, my name is Dorothy Pilarski. I'm the mother of, I always feel so bad saying 2 kids, you hear all these women that have 10, 12, 8. I have 2 kids, a boy and a girl. They are now adults. And in fact, this year I became, in Polish, it's called a babcia, but in English it's called a grandma. So my kids are seasoned, and I had the opportunity to have a television show on Salt and Light TV called Motherhood Matters. No, not Motherhood Matters. Mothering Full of Grace. I've written a book on motherhood. Used to be a columnist with the Catholic Register. Prior to my life in the mothering, I was a workaholic. You become a different kind of workaholic, but delivering corporate training programs across Canada, across the US, internationally in Australia and New Zealand. So the good Lord has blessed me, and I can't stop working. It's a different type of working now, but I have that type A personality. I don't know in the temperaments where I stand. I took the tests, but definitely go kind of woman. And I just admire you. Like, oh my gosh, I go, how does she do it with so many kids? I'm like, I barely survived with 2. I'm like, wow, this woman is anointed. You have been given many, many, many gifts. I honestly, I'm like, okay,
Oh
I
my
know
goodness.
how she does.
You are so I do it the same as you, one day at a time, and a tremendous amount of faith in the Lord's provision. But you have started something very cool, the Catholic Moms Group movement. Like I'm in a Catholic Moms Group here in Peterborough. It is something I look forward to every single month. Tell anyone who might not be familiar with Catholic Moms Group, what is it and what prompted you to start this?
Well, we are blessed to be faith partners with the Archdiocese of Toronto. And I've been hosting my own mother's group for well over 25, 26 years, very, very long time. And I guess at one point, I guess after the television program, Mothering Full of Grace, and I had mentioned that I had a mother's group. And so women started connecting with me and saying, well, how do you do that? And what do you do? And I'm like, well, it's not rocket science. It's pretty straightforward. And anyway, I've got a lot of stories to tell, and I've got to be careful I don't talk too much because that's something I have a tendency to do. So anyway, I had my own mother's group, had the TV show, wrote the book. Women started approaching me. In the 12th year of my own Catholic Moms Group, year 12, we're sitting there and I said, 12 years of hosting a moms group. This is like, we should celebrate this, and we should celebrate it, nicely. Let's go to the Sheridan and let's all of us invite somebody that we know to join us for this celebration. Well, that first year, in year 12 of my mother's group, about 100 women showed up at the Sheridan, and that was the first Dynamic Women of Faith conference. I was never planning to do that again. I was kind of like, this is my 12-year celebration. So Dynamic Women of Faith is now in its 16th year. So mothers, so anyway, at one point, my husband encouraged me. A lot of people were encouraging me because I guess I have written the book, Motherhood Matters, where I have it here somewhere too. I was going to offer a copy to your listeners if anybody wanted to you want to do a draw or something. But anyway, I met with Cardinal Collins. They kind of knew me because of the book, because of the TV show. And they said, well, let's try with 12 mothers groups. Let's do a trial run. And now we've got mothers groups in North Pole and Mississippi, in it's just been a remarkable. It's been, I always say our Blessed Mother opens the doors, and I kind of just, walk through it, because you certainly, for example, would have more experience being a mother than I would. But it's just our Blessed Mother opens these doors, and we have these promptings in our hearts, and we kind of follow those promptings with grace and prayer. And so if anyone here is interested in starting a Catholic Moms group, please visit CatholicMomsGroup.com. That's what we're here to do. We're here to help mothers get started. Some mothers groups, continue to work with us, some for now 10 years, others work with us for a year or two, and then I'm like, whatever you want to do, it's your mother's group, it's your parish mother's group. So it's a long story, and thanks for your patience with me telling you all about it. But I could talk about it forever, so I'll just.
Why, Dorothy, do you think community is so important as Catholic mother? So essentially, these Catholic mom groups, they meet once a month typically. I have been a guest speaker at other Catholic moms groups, or sometimes you just pick a topic and there's some reflection questions. You've provided some resources. So I've kind of, in the group that I'm in, we've done all kinds of things. Sometimes it's guided things that you have created. Sometimes we're just picking a podcast to talk about. But the thing that's very consistent is we gather for, it's usually around 8 p.m. So like kids have been put to bed typically. People bring a snack, they might bring a little drink, and we just gather in someone's home, and it's a time for community and fellowship. Why do you think this consistent type of community gathering is so important for Catholic moms?
Well, I always say not every culture maybe needs a Catholic moms group. I was born in Poland and was raised in a very Polish devout family. And my mom kept us in, I call it the bubble of the Polish community. All right. And all the Polish moms, they knew one another. They knew what you were up to. And we all, like, my whole life centered around the church, going to watch the altar boys play hockey, taking religion classes, dance classes, everything at St. Stan's. And so my mom didn't need a mom's group because everybody there was on the same page. Well, lo and behold, I marry a Canadian, which was a good thing. And we're going to all these different churches because of hockey arena, hockey practices and ballet, and you're meeting all these people in different places, and even in the corporate setting. And in Canada, we're bumping against millions and zillions of other people of different faiths. And so it can begin to make you wonder, like it made me wonder when I was even in high school. My mom tells me this, and I go out to high school because I didn't go to a Catholic high school, and they're telling me that. So it can, the multiculturalism, multi-faith, it is a gift, but it can cause confusion, right? And so moms getting together in our culture that are Catholic and are serious about their faith is extremely important because, well, where else would I meet Lisa Canning?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where else would I meet one of our mothers group leaders, Krystyna Zasowski, a mother of 8, a grandmother of 10 who skis, goes to, I'm like, oh, I didn't know they made women like you, right? And so coming together is important because we get inspired, we learn more about our Catholic faith, and then we go, oh my gosh, there really are women who are serious about their faith. And then it inspires us to grow more. So anyway, those are just a couple of the reasons. But yeah.
So you've interacted with many different moms, and through the conference and through your groups. What are you observing are the main problems or the main challenges facing Catholic moms today?
Well, I think our culture is expecting so much from women today. Like, we're expected to have an Instagram-worthy, beautiful, neat house with not one crumb on the floor. We're expected to, be fit. We're expected to be working full-time. We're expected to have gluten-free foods that are good for your gut. We're expected to take our kids to extracurricular activities. We're expected to be on social media, but not be on social media because it's damaging your children's cell. There are so many demands being put on women that it's ridiculous, really. So I think that's one problem, are all of the demands. I think the other problem, for sure, it can cause a lot of confusion, is social media. There's a whole barrage of women that hate the fact that they've become a mother, and they spew all this venom online about, I love my baby, but I hate being a mother. And it's so Satan also has access to us in ways that maybe he didn't have access to us before. He has access to our children in ways that he didn't have before. So I think it's hard for women right now, also because our way of being has become very transactional, right? Like, someone might not agree with something I've said or done, or maybe they read one sentence in my book they didn't like, and it's like swipe and delete. And it's almost as if Dorothy Pilarski isn't a human being because she wrote something in her book in 2009, and 20 years have gone by and maybe something has changed. So this swipe and delete culture is also a huge challenge because, well, how do you make good friends in the middle of all of this, right? Because everyone's, who do you trust? So many,
Yeah,
many
absolutely.
challenges in this day and age.
There's an interesting point that Father James Mallon in his book Divine Renovation makes. And he talks about how the culture used to evangelize. So the culture helped keep us Christian, helped keep us Catholic. We do not need to expand on that fact that today's culture does not evangelize, right? And so what do we do as Catholic moms? Because there's many different responses I see. I see a response of almost like hunker down and protect and never be in the world. And, just, we're just going to like anything at any way modern is like evil. So I see that response. I see a response that's like, we have to be flexible. We have to change with the times. We have to adapt. Like there's many different ways that we can navigate the fact that the culture no longer evangelizes like it did in the 1950s, right? This is the point that Father James makes in the book. So what do we do to keep our children close to the Lord? What do we as Catholic moms, like, what are the important things that we need to have in our lives to respond to this fact and to introduce the faith to our children?
Well, a lot of things begin at the beginning. And so, as soon as you find out that you're expecting, right, is to be praying for the child in your womb. And I think the union between mother and child begins very, very early. And so acknowledging this little baby in our womb as existing and developing a relationship right from the word get-go. I think the unity of heart is extremely, extremely important, right? I remember reading a book, and I forget the name of the title. Oh my gosh, how embarrassing. But the priest had said that the communion of hearts between mother and child are so important. So like we often talk about, don't go to bed if you're upset with your husband, make sure you kiss and make up. Well, that unity between mother and child, make sure that you kiss and make up every single day. Make sure that you kiss and make up every single day, right? So that unity of heart. So I think that having a tender heart and your children feeling your love towards them, right? I guess I started having children late in my life and not of any choice of my own. And I remember, thinking of the way that I was brought up and thinking the way that my mom made me feel, and being an immigrant family with 4 kids, and she was very stern. And so I kept on thinking, okay, how do I want my children to feel in interacting with me, Dorothy Pilarski, which is really McElroy, but it's Pilarski because I never changed my name. But anyway, so okay, I want my children to feel love. I want my children to feel affirmed. I want my children to feel joyful. I want my children to feel hopeful. I want my children to feel I loved your book, The Possibility Mom, because I don't think very many Catholic women are possibilitarians, right? So, I used to like to take my kids to the airport for mass and then talk to pilots and then go on the train in the middle of the day because I just wanted them to feel this, And so if there's this union of hearts that I love you to pieces and I want you to know it. And I love being in your company. You're so much fun and I am so blessed. And, it's Valentine's Day. You know what? My gift is you. You're my gift. It's Mother's Day. I don't need a gift. I've got you. So because I think right now a lot of women are stressed. A lot of women are angry because they're pulled. A lot of women are depressed and overwhelmed because all that. And then so they forget the beauty of this magnificent creature, this adult creature, this beautiful child of God. again, there's that beautiful book too about the importance of staying in the present moment.
Mhm.
So if we can be in the present moment with our child, and this being the Jubilee year of hope, wanting to again become a missionary of hope to that child, like I love the possibility. Like I think too, when you took your kids at the Ave Maria Center of Peace and you guys went on that big boat, I forget what those boats are called. I was
A pontoon.
on too. And so I'm like, I love this woman. I love this woman. I love this woman. We used to travel with my husband when he went on business trips. And when I went on business trips, we took the kids as well. So what can we do? We can make sure that our kids know that we love them, that we love being in their company, and that sometimes as a mom, you got to be like Tarzan, right? You got to grab your Jane or whatever. You have to grab your kid, jump on the thing, make it to the next day, make it to the next moment. Because being self-employed too, right? Right?
I do know, yes. Oh, that's a great visual. I really just want people to pause and like think about that. Like literally think about, in my case, it's taking 10 kids under my arm. Some are on the back, some are, whatever. And then just like you're on the vine and you're like, let's go. Everybody hang on. It's gonna be scary. But I think, okay, people, this is gonna get so personal for a moment, but let's just go here. People often ask me, how is it you're able to have so many children, right? And I know what they're asking really behind that question. Often, sometimes it's not, but most of the time when somebody asks me that, what's really behind it is they're examining either their own discomfort or their own fear of something in their own life. So, for example, I'm going to be too tired, or I'm already so frustrated with like my life and my children and the state of my home. Having another one is just going to make it even worse. So they're when they ask the question, typically there's something they're trying to work out in themselves, right? And where I've just come to that I'd love your sort of like thoughts on is this like Tarzan moment. And I love that you introduced this visual, this moment of just grabbing the vine and you're trusting you're going to make it on whatever other side. And that's the thing that my life has shown me. I have so much evidence of grabbing that vine and being like, but I'm going to fall off. And the Lord just being like, can you please just trust me and go? Now, we have to recognize that's also very scary. I'm not trying to say everybody put yourself in peril all the time or be reckless. That's not what I'm arguing here. But there can be an internal, like, the encouragement, I guess what I'm trying to suggest to people to do is, what is it that you're finding scary? Like, what is in the fear, or what is in the lack of the control, or the lack of whatever? And take that to prayer. Take that to a spiritual director. You might have to take that to a therapist or a counselor or a coach, because there just might be something that you actually are having to work out in you that's not about the children. It's actually about you. And so I love that visual, and I think that's where a lot of the fear and the anger that you're talking about comes from in women. It's something unresolved in themselves that they're just not addressing. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think fear is huge. And, so I'm going to kind of stick to my little world as I know it, rather than being open to a new world. So I think fear is huge. The other thing too, that I was listening to a homily once by Cardinal Collins, and he said that we as a culture, not just women, but we as a culture in general, that we have come to, we believe that we can only rely on ourselves, right? So, well, if I can't imagine how I'm going to make the additional money, then of course I can't have another child. Or if I can't imagine how this child is going to live in this one bedroom and add another one to it, if I can't imagine it, so we're too, like, we have made the self, the God, right? And that is, because honestly, I know there's a woman that is watching here today, and I say it at my conference every year. I say, God is calling you to have a baby. He's calling you. There are millions of babies that are dying to be born, and God needs your yes. And so I am inviting you today to have that baby and to trust and to know that God can create miracles. Like, I remember I was delivering seminars in Australia and New Zealand to 300, 400, 500 women. I'm like, how the heck did this happen? How did this happen? I had no idea, right? It was just like that mentality. It's like, okay, the door is open. Let's zoom through. Let's see. Same thing with this ministry, right? I could never conceive that we were going to have mothers groups. We have mothers group internationally in Wales. And just because you can't conceive it doesn't mean God can't do it. And you know what? I have to be careful. This is one thing I may regret saying, but hey, what the heck is that? I always say that the Catholic Church, it doesn't really have a pro-life movement. It has an anti-abortion movement. A pro-life movement is Lisa Canning, a pro-life movement. And if you want to be pro-life, you need to help the mom that has the newborn. You need to help Lisa Canning. We need to encourage women to allow themselves to listen to the promptings of their own hearts. That's my big, people say, you're an anti-working woman. I'm like, you've worked more than most women that I know. Don't give me that crap. I'm not anti-working. I'm pro following the promptings of your heart. And if your heart takes you to be a homesteading mom, good luck to you, because I like living in the Sheridan if I can.
You and me both. You and me both.
So anyway.
But what I'm hearing you say, or what is required by, like, to make what you say possible, so following the promptings of your heart, what strikes me as very necessary is one then must have this disposition or develop the habit, to be honest, of a deep relationship with the Lord. That's like number one. You cannot follow a prompting if there's no access to the prompting. Like that just, it makes sense.
And prompting of the heart, you have to be careful, because if the prompting of your heart tells you to fly off to Hawaii with the guy at the office, we don't want to follow that prompting. So it does have to be rooted in an informed conscience, an informed Catholic conscience. It has to be rooted in spiritual direction, has to be rooted in the Eucharist. And I think a lot of women lack confidence because they're not rooted in those practices. Right.
The only way, like I said, I articulated it here on this episode, I have evidence of being able to trust the Lord, but it's only because the experience of getting to know him in that way, like in the experience of literally talking to him, made that possible, right? So that strikes me as very necessary. And then the other thing that I think is very necessary to do what we're articulating here is to have the community, because of course our brains can sometimes get very discouraged. Our brains, our bodies, this pro-life movement you're talking about, where you go and you encourage a mom, you bring the food. One of the things that was very attractive about moving to Ave Maria for me was that there were so many large families in one spot. And I experienced some of the most audacious, truly audacious generosity. Like when we moved there, we had a meal train just for moving. Like, who does that? Just for moving. We were strangers. I knew nobody. And we had a meal train. And then I had a baby within a month or two of moving to Ave Maria, and we had another meal train. When the kids were sick, we got a meal train. just that's just so fascinating. Like, and actually learning to accept that type of generosity and help from strangers was actually very difficult for me, but it was such a great lesson. The other thing that I've noticed now here in Peterborough is I've now moved to an area, and this is a whole other Dorothy, like I'm becoming a nerd about this topic, and that's the agricultural influence on a community. So I have moved to a place where I am among tons of farmers, and I'm talking like legacy farming families. So families that have been on the same plot of land, farming it for generations. And the majority of the people that I know are actually making a living from their farm. They're not just hobby farmers. They're actually making a living from the farm. The observations I have about this community, I just like, I think I joke about living at the Sheridan, but I also have seen in a very new way the like farmers help each other.
Yes.
I think it's just part of that. I don't know, like it's just sort of like you just
like
you need it. Yeah, it's interesting. And so, like, for example, I'll just very, very simple examples. I needed a light fixture installed. And we have a Catholic, Catholic moms in Peterborough. We have a group chat. And I was like, hey, like, I'd love to support a Catholic electrician. Like, who's got one? He shows up at my door and I said, well, what do I owe you? And he was like, nothing. And I was like, pardon? And he was like, yeah, no, like I just, for the Catholic families, I really just like, this took me 30 minutes, no problem. We had an HVAC problem. And similarly, I went to the group and I was like, hey, like I'd love to support somebody local, like who's an HVAC person. Gentleman shows up at my house, same thing. I said, like, how can I compensate you? And he was like, no, it's nothing. For the Catholic families here, you're around the corner from my house. I'm very, very happy to help you. I was honestly here for 30 minutes. Like, there's just like an interesting culture that I'm observing where I live that is this pro-life culture you're talking about. Like where and of course, does the worker need to be compensated 100%? Nobody leaves this podcast thinking I'm saying do everything for free. No, that's not what I'm saying. But when possible, I think that it's just this beautiful pro-life movement. Like that's a pro-life community when you're willing to just come over and help when somebody is ill and you make them dinner, when someone's just had a baby, of course, and you do the meal train. Like that's truly what a pro-life, I agree with you, is what I'm saying is that.
I'm thinking we should give it a different name because pro-life, I don't know whether it's pro-mom or, so this is kind of the culture we're trying to create within these, little moms groups is that, yeah, I've got 10 moms that I can connect with immediately because, this kid can't get baptized because the priest at this parish won't baptize. Like, okay, Dorothy, do you know a priest? Yeah, boom, boom, boom. So these little micro communities. And like sometimes people ask me, like, Dorothy, like, are you ever going to stop? Like, you've been saying the same thing for 25 years, trying to round up mothers. But to me, Lisa, it's like a national emergency because I really feel that Satan is trying to take out, I guess JP2 would call it the feminine genius. Like it's almost as if Satan is trying to take all Marian traits and rip them out of our culture. Like we no longer have time to visit people who are sick because we're too busy. We no longer have time to cook a meal for our own family because we're too busy. We no longer have time to visit with a mom who's just had a baby. Like these are all acts of mercy. These are all, and we've become so sophisticated, he's the director or the CEO or, I remember when I had to fly out on, I don't know how many business trips. And at one point I had missed a cousin's wedding of mine. Right. And I was seeing all of the family pictures and everything. And then I was like, I began to pause, right? I'm like, okay, yeah, here you are in New Zealand delivering these seminars to these people that you never know and you're never going to see again. And you miss this family wedding, right? And I've been blessed. I've been to Hawaii 6 or 7 times. And one of the times I had rented a car. I was delivering a communication skills seminar for an American seminar company. And I was riding around the island obsessively with my rented car, right? But I was by myself. And a little story here. I was like, the epitome of, you got to be independent. You got to do this. You got to do that. So I go to the Honolulu Zoo. I was by myself. I was single. And a woman comes up to, a woman in front of me. She had 5, 6, 7 kids. And I look at her and I say, like, do you run a home daycare? And she turned, Gwen was her name. She looked at me. She goes, no, each and every one of these kids are mine. I was like, oh, I said, but you look happy. I said, I've never met a woman that has so many kids that looks happy. I said, all of my friends seem to be bitter and complaining. And this was before I was married, before I had any kids, in my driven, single, successful, quote unquote years. And she goes, do you have anyone special in your life? I said, yeah, I've been dating this guy, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, well, why haven't you married him? And I'm like, oh, like, what's the rush? And she said, if you had any real courage, she goes, what do you do? I said, oh, I'm an international speaker. I deliver seminars. And she goes, I feel sorry for you. I'm like, dang. She goes, those people there at the Hyatt that you're motivating, you're never going to see them on your deathbed. They're not going to be there. She goes, if you had any real courage, she goes, I'd go home and I'd marry that guy and I'd start having a family. Gwen was her name, in the Honolulu Zoo. So a couple of years ago, we took our family to the Honolulu Zoo, and I went with Monica and Michael and John. I said, here, with these children. But so God speaks to us through people, through strangers. And I anyone that knows me knows that I constantly pray that prayer by Cardinal Mercier, Holy Spirit, beloved of my soul, console me, tell me what I should do. I just ask people to pray that 6, 7 times a day, because God wants to speak to you. He wants to speak to you through Lisa. He wants to speak to you through, our many speakers at the Dynamic Women of Faith conference. Anyway, sorry, I'm very passionate about this topic, Lisa.
Yeah, and I love it, and it's why you're here. I mean, I could talk to you all day, Dorothy, but like, if you had to kind of distill it down, there's this his name is James Wedmore. If I'm not mistaken, he's the one who asked this on his podcast often, or at least he used to. He would be like, if I had a piece of paper and this is all you get to leave behind, and you only have one 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, you only have this space to write one message or one question or one thing that you want people to ponder, and that's it. Like, what would you be having Catholic moms ponder?
That Jesus really is in the Eucharist. And if you want supernatural, extraordinary power, he's there every single day at a Catholic church. And I know it's not possible to anybody and everybody, because different people have different schedules and live in different places. But it has been, because like when I had my first kids, it was not easy because I was the youngest in my family and my husband traveled a lot and I had never had a baby in my life. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I loved them. But I was like, oh my gosh. But I had been going to daily mass because my father had died like 20 years prior to that, suddenly, unexpectedly, and the Eucharist became my antidepressant. I said, if what my foolish mother taught me is true, that Jesus really is present in that Eucharist, that Jesus is going to help me get over my father's death. And so fast forward, when I had kids, I'm like, Jesus is there. He's in, that same Jesus that had, performed remarkable, extraordinary miracles. He's still performing them today. And I encourage you to believe that. And I encourage you to find the scripture passage in John. I'm not a biblical scholar that, anointed me, and run to Jesus in the Eucharist and go as often as you can. My personal experience has been that if I make that the priority of my day as often as I can, that everything else is given to me. Like, okay, the house is messy. I have nothing for my husband for Valentine's Day. I'm trying to, promote as much as I can the Dynamic Women of Faith conference. If I drop everything and I run to the Eucharist, everything else is going to work out. Now, sometimes I've had to, watch Mass online. I sometimes struggle with sciatica and so on and so forth. So that would be the one thing. I would put a tabernacle Eucharistic, and I would say, just go there, sit there, be with him. And he's really there. And make, we're going to naturopaths, we're going to coaches, we're going to seminars. Every single day we got Jesus in the Eucharist right there.
I can tell you a story. I don't think my spiritual director would mind me repeating this, but what is my profession? I'm a coach. Okay. Like everybody reminder, my spiritual director was like, people don't need life coaches. He was like, people just need Jesus. And I literally was like, Father, like, what do I do for a living? And he was like, I know. Like, yes, you can do that. It was so funny, but he just was like, there is truth there. Like a coach can, of course, help you, but nothing is that replacement. Like the coach should be leading you closer to a absolutely intimate relationship.
Right? I coach Mothers Group leaders. I'm a coach as well. I am suspicious of coaches if I don't know their lives, right? And okay, I don't know your life but I know enough of it to see that you're the real deal, right? I'm like, okay, this woman, she has stretched herself literally, figuratively. She's transparent about her and her husband's, mental health issues. I don't know how many pages in your book I underlined, circled, and so I would trust you as a coach. I would, because I think, okay, she's the real deal, right? But I would be careful, because you don't know, like, who is this person that you're surrendering to, that you're making your
truly your coaching should, whoever you've got in your life, whether it's health, whether it's habits, whether it's time management, even business, like whoever you have in your life, all of that should be helping you become more in union with Jesus. Like that truly is, like that's just truth. So Dorothy, I'm so excited to be joining you at the Dynamic Women of Faith Conference, March 22nd. I can't wait. Like, I just really can't wait. I have spoken at your conference before. It's a very special conference to me because it's where I actually introduced my book, The Possibility Mom. Like, that was the very first place I publicly brought copies of my book that someone could purchase. So it's a very, very special conference, March 22nd, 2025. Today is the very last day to take advantage of the early bird ticket. So if you've been on the fence, I just want to encourage you, just make the decision today. Discern it, talk about it with your husband, but make the decision today, because early bird is today. What can people expect at this conference, Dorothy?
Well, the like, what does it kind of quote unquote include? It includes it includes a lot. It includes coffee and muffin in the morning. It includes a light lunch. We're going to have different organizations are going to have tables there. So Chalice is going to be there. Salt and Light TV is going to be there. Novalis is going to be there. Novalis is always very generous in terms of door prizes and things like that. Annie Carto, a speaker we're flying in from Florida, is a truly anointed speaker. We try to bring in different generations of women, right? Because another thing I see, and I guess I got to be careful because I can't go forever, but that mothers groups can be multi-generational, because you've got all these retired teachers that are kind of, and I'm like, help these young women, help these moms, right? Let's do the meal train. Let's do the breakfasts. Be part of a mother's group where you're calling them and you're helping them because you're a retired teacher now, right? So we do, and I say to women, don't be afraid to come alone, because it's a very friendly conference. So if you're thinking, oh, I don't have anyone to go with, you don't need to go anyone to go with. We're probably gonna, we'll be 300 plus women there. So there's a lot of buzz, there's a lot of energy. People are bumping into one another they haven't seen for a long time. One thing I do want to mention, and I know I should be quiet because I know it was probably going too long, but people have asked, why am I having Father Marcin talk about his experiences or what it means to be a midwife, because he was a midwife in Madagascar, right? Well, I read a passage that talked about a woman being very similar to Jesus, because she lays down her life, she sheds her blood, she feeds her children with her own flesh and blood. So our mission is very similar to Jesus's, right? He was crucified in the cross. We're crucified during birth, right? Like, it was a very profound quote. And I often think that a lot of Catholic priests and sometimes men maybe don't understand they understand Blessed Mother Mary's role in the role of salvation, but sometimes I don't think that the woman in the pew, that they understand that her role in the role of salvation, the woman sitting in the pew. And so I thought, Father Marcin is a priest, plus he's been a midwife, so he has seen it. And I asked him to begin his talk with that quote, because I don't think that we as women understand the supernatural, spiritual sacrifice and gift we're giving the world by mothering.
Oh, I'm so excited. I really, we're opening birth centers. The charity that I'm involved in the United States, Guiding Star Project, we're opening birth centers. So the midwifery model is very near and dear to me. So I'm personally, just on a very personal note, excited to meet him because that is just so unique, right? And to hear his story. I'm going to be speaking about finding joy in suffering. You've got a surprise guest or a surprise speaker, Dr. Josephine Lombardi, who I'm very excited to. We've bumped into each other a few times, but we've not had the chance to kind of like spend time together at length. So I'm excited to see her. And it really is like homecoming, like truly, like for
that's a good word for it. Yeah.
If you're kind of anywhere in the greater Toronto area, surrounding regions, it draws all these people you haven't seen in forever. And I just really I cannot wait. I'm hoping that we have a whole contingency from my agricultural community in Peterborough who are going to join as well. And so, yes, if you're on the fence, but you have been leaning towards yes, grab your ticket today, because early bird, you might as well save some money. Yes. And it's going to be a really beautiful day. You get there's a meal included, right, Dorothy?
Yes, yeah, it's a light lunch. We're not serving steak or anything like that. So it's a light lunch. It's a light breakfast. I always say it's Lent after all. And so we used to have it so that women would go out for lunch, and so they could have as big or a little of a lunch as they wanted when we had it at the International Plaza Hotel. But then people said, oh, I wish I could have just, because we used to host it at a hotel, we'd say, okay, here's the thing, you come back, and then different people were coming in at different times, and it got a bit staggered. So people like being kind of together. I love the analogy of a homecoming. I love it, because that's exactly, and we do it. We've got people coming in from Brantford. We've got people coming in from Guelph.
Oh yeah.
We've had people fly in from Vancouver, from Maryland to come.
Oh yeah. The last one I attended we had people from all over, like East Coast of Canada.
Yes.
Get together for a meal after, you know what I mean? Like, you can make this a destination. You can make this a little bit of a reunion. Where I got trained as a coach, Metanoia Catholic, all the Metanoia Catholic coaches met up for a meal after, because we're all over the world. So that was really, really special. So you can go and grab your tickets. It's dynamicwomenfaith.com. That's dynamicwomenfaith.com. You can grab your ticket and see more information about the conference, March 22nd at the West End of Toronto. I cannot wait to be there, Dorothy. And Dorothy, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else that you want to say today that you haven't had a chance to say?
Not just, will you have copies of your book there? Can people?
Oh yes, and I will probably have a little special something that I've been working on. I don't know if I'm prepared to announce exactly. I will have something special ready for March 22nd, which I've been working on for a while. So
yeah, no, because I've gifted the book, and I just would like to make sure that it's. I love your whole, your vision of creating work for women, that they can be close to their children, be in the center of it, but at the same time, be helping their families. I think it's fantastic. So no, it's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Dorothy, where can people go to learn more about you and your work?
My work is basically reviving the vocation of motherhood. But I've got a website, dorothypilarski.com. But I just encourage anyone, just please, start a mother's group. I don't even care if you start it with us or through us, but I always say that a mother's group is the best kept secret in the world. It really is. It will bless you more than you could have ever imagined. And I say, just start it even once a month. And if you do need help, of course, we love helping people, catholicmomsgroup.com. But if you want to forge out on your own, God bless you. Just, just start it, because it really, I just think of the women that I've met. I would have never met Lisa had I not had my own mother's group, right? I just wouldn't have met all these incredible women that are there. So thank you, Lisa. It's just been a real honor. It's been a real honor. I do have to say that sometimes, as you're aging, as I'm aging, I'm a grandmother now, that sometimes, you kind of feel like, oh, I'm not like the hipster young moms with the cool Instagram, and I'm not hipster enough. So just thank you for making me feel welcome. And I
think you're pretty hip. Look at your glasses. I think you're pretty hip. I mean, Dorothy Pilarski, you are very hip. Everybody, I hope to see you at the Dynamic Women of Faith Conference.
I appreciate it.
Everybody, thank you so much. We will see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you.